It's like Overwatch come CS:GO game,
Oh, well, I like both those games.
but it looks like it was made 10 years ago.
Hmm.
So,
To be fair, CS:GO was made 20 years ago. You're
yes.
still playing that,
Yeah.
so
I don't know. People seem really hot for it.
I guess there's always some multiplayer game someone's hot for.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I break out old reliable and open up the Minecraft.
Yeah. This is just be ready. I'm saying it here first. In the next couple of months, you're gonna start seeing articles all over. Is this the new Fortnite killer?
I mean, it might be.
For
I
some
mean,
reason,
eventually,
people think Fortnite is still relevant.
I mean, a lot of people play it, Sam.
It's the same as Minecraft though.
Yeah, but they don't spend microtransactions on Minecraft.
That's a good point. Yeah.
They just download free mods.
That. Fair enough. You got me there.
Money makes the world turn around.
Mm-hmm. So how's your day been, other than working on your project, or have you just been doing that all day?
No, not all day. I did that for a lot, but I also was catching up on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm not sure if you watched any of that.
No.
Yeah, I watched. I'd watched the first 5 seasons, way back when, and now I'm getting caught up on the 6th and 7th season. So it's a good show.
Yeah,
so
I'm not particularly a fan of those kind of shows. So
no, they're not for everyone, but I like them.
I watched Life of Bryant today.
Life of Bryant.
Brian, sorry.
I don't know to say. Did they make a sequel?
I wanted to add the T.
Life of Bryant. I've never actually seen that one all the way through.
It's, Holy Grail is better. I will say that. But
I feel like that's the general consensus.
There are a couple points where it's like that's a very good joke, but most of it was just kind of absurdist.
It's Monty Python, so that's their shtick.
Very, very nice, dry British humor, which is what I was looking for.
And that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah. As much as I'd love to be laughing so hard I can't breathe, it's also nice to have a good chuckle every once in a while.
Some reasonable gaffes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even chortle a bit.
Those British can't laugh too hard or they'll inhale their tea and hurt their tobacco-filled lungs.
They can't handle any moisture. They'll implode.
Nope.
Oh, nice. I'll have to get around to watching that one day.
It's on Netflix
Maybe
now.
Someday.
So.
Yeah, and one day is literally today. We're all in quarantine.
Yeah.
This is all we can do.
I mean, I'm not going to put pressure on you. I know people, I'm one, if like, oh, have you watched this? Like, no, I'm planning on, oh, dude, you should totally watch it. Like, it's so good. No, I don't really want to. There's something about people telling me to do something that makes me not want to do it a lot. Like, a lot.
A lot? Yeah, that could make sense. It doesn't want to become work, right? It doesn't want to become an assignment.
Right.
You're just enjoying it.
I also have, I finished Beastars the other day. I watched it over the course of 2 days.
That's, what is that again?
It's the new Netflix anime.
Oh, is that the CGI one?
Yeah, I guess it's CGI.
Oh, the furry show.
Yeah, kind of. But Matt recommended it to me, and it was already on my list. And Matt's like, "Oh, you should watch it." I'm like, no, I don't really want to now. But I did. I watched it, and the second day, I really had to force myself because I think I have a big issue with finishing shows.
Why are you lying to me, Sam?
Matt, you did say I should watch it. Maybe I just take whenever
watch some furry shows.
I think I take whenever you say it's good as you should watch it. I just value your opinion that much.
Well, you shouldn't. Clearly, you're lying to his face.
What?
See? But was it good?
It was good. But I have an issue with finishing things, I think. Because I don't want to be let down. And the ending is a little weird. I think Matt can agree with me on that.
That's weird as a CGI Furry show can be?
Yes.
Oh.
And was it Matt that said it gets kind of Dragon Ball Z in the manga?
Dragon Ball Z? Well, what do you mean by that?
I don't know. Maybe I can't remember if it was Matt that said it or not, but like it just gets ridiculous. Yeah.
It just gets ridiculous.
Compared it to Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, it just keeps over topping itself.
Yeah.
Okay, that I can see. To the point of absurdity.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully it's not power creep, because that makes no sense for it was a slice of life anime.
I wouldn't do that. I love you even more. I haven't even begun flirting.
Yeah, but I apologize, Matt. I thought you recommended me to watch it, because usually you do when you recommend it. When you talk about an anime, you say you should watch this.
Sammy only made an entire Google Doc recommending animes for us that one time.
Yeah. Well, no, Cooper, don't lie. Don't you fucking lie. That's not recommending animes. That was reviewing them.
Okay. All right.
You piece of shit.
Oh, jeez. All right. Calm down.
I'm sorry I take, hey, this is good, as maybe you should watch it.
Oh, Dragon Ball Z Pratik is, I believe, is what we were talking about today.
It was invented in 1437 by actually Ringo Starr, the founder of the Beatles. Yeah.
Yeah.
People forget that he's that old. That's crazy.
Yes, he is an eternal. Mm-hmm. Still makes shitty art, though.
He's got a great voice, though. I love hearing Ringo Starr impressions. I wish I could do one.
Oh, you just have to sing about the ocean.
No, I'm just his speaking voice.
Oh yeah, it's very sing-songy.
Mm-hmm.
God may rest in peace.
Jonah, that's a lie. You yell all the time. Are you kidding me?
It's kind of your default. Well, anyways, speaking of the Brits, do you want to jump into it?
Yeah, sure. We can get ahead and get started since we're a couple minutes late. Alrighty, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us here today for the Audio Shop podcast. Today, we're talking about Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd, the legendary English rock band. I'll be hard-pressed to Dark Side of the Moon. Maybe you've heard of it. I don't know. Maybe. It's like 50 years old now. So It's actually starting to be a bit of more of a classic than like contemporary music, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of weird to think about, but I feel like it still is kind of out there. I mean, everyone's heard of Dark Side of the Moon, obviously. And everybody's heard The Wall. But Wish You Were Here, I think, is one of those that's still kind of on the fringes. Especially, except for the title song, obviously, which is on the radio all the time. I don't think I've ever heard any of the other songs on the radio. However,
probably because it's like the shortest song of the album.
Yes.
Or close to it.
30 seconds away from being the shortest. But yeah, you want to do some of the history, Coop, since you typed all that up?
Yeah. I'll give a little bit of a background for those who aren't super familiar. So, of course, like we're saying, Pink Floyd, a famous prog rock English band from the kind of operated from the 60s to the 80s. I know they released a couple albums like later than that, but mostly known for that time period. They are widely considered one of the most commercially successful and influential bands in popular music ever. If you Google best album of all time, it'd be hard pressed not to find Dark Side of the Moon not in the top 10, if not like the number one. So they're kind of considered like the very classic rock, but very experimental at the same time. And obviously, rock and roll harmony fame. They've sold more than 250 million records worldwide. Like you said, Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall have both sold incredibly well. So, and this particular album is their 9th studio album, Wish You Were Here, released back in September 12th of 1975. So just about 45 years ago. And this one's interesting because it was kind of received mixed reviews from critics at its release, which, to be fair, it's the follow-up to Dark Side of the Moon, which is that's a tough act to follow. Though, of course, with most everything that Pink Floyd's done during this period, it's later been retrospectively received with critical acclaim. Uh, kind of that shine kind of spreads to all their albums, or a lot of them. And it has sold 13 million copies, so, it's done well for itself.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's a little more slipped on in the general Pink Floyd discography, I feel.
Yeah, and to do a little counterpoint to what you were saying earlier, Cooper, I just pulled up the Rolling Stones top 500 albums of all time, and there's not a single Pink Floyd album in the top 10. But number
Really?
4 is Bob Dylan's Highway 61 Revisited, so maybe take it with a grain of salt.
Well, you just don't like Bob Dylan's voice.
What do you mean?
He's a songwriter.
He sings so well.
You just wish his song about the Kennedy assassination was longer, don't you?
I wanted a half an hour song. I'm sorry
minimum.
I'm sorry that he had to stop at 17 minutes.
Well, you almost got a half-hour song on this one, Sam.
And
we take both parts together.
Yeah, and I will say, usually it feels like I don't know about you, Cooper, but I feel like I give super long songs a negative connotation in my head. But I think that stems from the fact that I see a 10-minute song on a 13-song album, and you're like, right. that is a long song compared to when everything else you're listening to is 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Yeah. Whereas this is a very short album, song number wise anyway.
Yeah, I guess we should probably address the fact that if you're not familiar with the album, structure wise, it's pretty interesting because it's a normal length album, 44 minutes. I'd say that's about the average, but it's only 5 songs long, and that's because 2 of the songs are 13 minutes each. And they're also basically the continuation of the same song. Mm-hmm. So it's basically like one long, 25-minute song, and then 3 other sizable songs as well on the album.
So going into it, it's gonna be a long song. But obviously, because that is the structure of the album as a whole almost, we can get into it when we talk about it, but going into it where there's only 5 songs and you're like, okay, well, so what if one song is 13 minutes long? It's not like the other songs are 2 and 3 minutes. You don't get used to that short length, and then they throw out this big long song at you. And plus, Pink Floyd is known for being prog rock, so obviously when
that is the prog.
when they're testing the boundaries, they're going to do it well. So
yeah, so I guess there's no need to skirt around it. We can just jump into the first track on this album, which is really a first of 5 tracks. Because this is Shine On You Crazy Diamond, parts 1 through 5. This is the first 13.5-minute song on the album.
Yeah, and also the inspiration for JoJo Part 4.
For the name at least.
Yeah, that's where Josuke's stand name came from.
Which is honestly a great name.
Mm-hmm.
And some good inspiration here as well. So I'm not sure how you broke it down, Sam, but basically I kind of wanted to approach it like a kind of a part by part-ish basis, because each part's got kind of introduces a new element to the song overall. So obviously we'll start with part 1, which is the first 4 minutes or so of the song. And this is I guess probably the epitome of a slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's 4 minutes of pretty, not ambient, but very low key and kind of this ever-present synth in the background. There's some lonesome guitar picking kind of introduced and maybe some synth key shifts. Yeah. But it's spacey.
Yeah, very spacey. I love that sci-fi-esque synth in the background over the long, low droning notes. It just, it's synth heaven right there. And it's kind of got some plinking notes every once in a while. Really far in the back right side of the sound stage, I guess I'll call it. And it just all melds together so well. And it sets it up for, they don't burn out the candle too quick, They've got 13 minutes of song ahead of them. They're going to slowly build into it. As opposed to, launching right into it and having nowhere to grow.
No, exactly. So this is definitely the jumping off point for the rest of the album, really.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously not too much is happening. And 4 minutes is a long time to not have too much happening. But at the very least, it is building up to something that will be a payoff.
Yeah.
This is, I guess, is part why it's like part 1 of 5, right? Where you're like, okay, there's still more to the song obviously coming up. This isn't like its own independent song.
And I will say it certainly did not feel like 4 minutes. It really sucked me in, and before I knew it, it was already part 2, which is, I think, another testament to the structure of the song. And there's been quite a few 10-minute songs that we've talked about in the past where you're sick of it after the first 2 minutes, whereas this one hasn't even gotten started by minute 4, and you haven't even noticed. So at least that's the case for me.
Kind of draws you in, yeah. And then, of course, on to part 2, and that's about the 4-minute mark to the 6.5-minute mark. Kind of starts very low-key as well, where it's just kind of this twangy guitar kind of pops in. That it's almost got a Western vibe to it, a little cowboy-esque, I might say. Before finally the percussion kicks in, and some backing guitars kind of fill in the rest of the space, and it feels like it's growing organically, like a flower, like blossoming in like high speed. It's a very satisfying payoff to like the first 4 minutes of the song.
Yeah, and I gotta say that transition from the synth to guitar lines was so smooth it took me a second to register the instrument switch. They tuned it. It was like they almost tuned it so it sounded like the synth, and then it dropped into that guitar line after switching from a held synth note to a held guitar note, and it was fantastic. It took me by surprise. I'm like, wait a second, this is guitar now, and it's incredibly smooth, just like everything else on the album.
Yeah, it is a very smooth album. Like I never feel like, obviously there's some like guitar solos and some like during this section some rock organ kind of sneaks in as well, and the guitar gets a little more energetic obviously than part 1. But I don't think the album ever loses really its lower key vibe. It never goes like insane or like loud. It kind of keeps this energy throughout.
And especially on this one, no section really drags out for too long, you know? Even it gets to the point where it's a little bit like, you know, I wish they would progress. And then it does, right when you feel like it should, because they do. And I don't know, for this first track especially, I kind of got the vibe of some people just doing a slow jam for the fun of it, you know?
Yeah, it definitely feels like a group effort, which is actually interesting because obviously most of the parts were written by the 3 main members of Pink Floyd, which are Wright, Gilmour, and Waters. So this is I think the only part that was written by a single person was the final part 9, which was just Wright. But yeah, so this was a very collaborative effort. So they're all kind of vibing together,
and it really shines through. Yeah.
like a diamond.
And diamonds are unbreakable.
I ruffle myself. And then it goes on. So at the end of part 2, on to part 3, which is like the 6.5-minute point to like the 9-minute point. That kind of transitioned most obviously by a guitar solo.
So good.
Which kind of keeps on with the light percussion of the rock organ underneath. It definitely is, it feels very similar to part 2. But that guitar solo kind of differentiates itself enough to like keep the song feel like it's moving forward.
And the style of that guitar solo fits perfectly with the slow style that's been, you know, going from the beginning of the song, which is not often well done. Transitioning to doing a guitar solo during a slow song.
It should be noted the song isn't like a Bohemian Rhapsody where like it's very distinct segments. They're like very like genre different. These are like all very cohesive together. Sometimes you can't even tell whenever like one part's sliding into another.
I didn't actually make note of different sections. I just kind of wrote as I went. But Cooper bringing up, here around this point is where this section starts. I'm like, okay, yeah, now that you've said that, I can hear that. But I didn't go into it searching for the part divisions.
Yeah. Though that is a pretty tasty guitar solo, especially at around the 7:45 mark. Another guitar kind of breaks in that's very twangy and tasty. That kind of breaks through, but still keeps that energy going.
Yeah, it's a little bit more energetic, a little bit louder, sticks out a little bit more. But it kind of transitions. You had a 1 minute guitar solo, and then you switch guitars for another minute guitar solo. So,
and then
got to keep it fresh.
The obvious answer of where to go from there is to introduce vocals 9 minutes deep into a song, which of course starts part 4, 9 minutes to like 11 minutes, where Waters comes in with his introduction of his vocals. And it feels like it really, all the cornerstones of the song that's been established kind of converge at this moment.
And I love his vocals, but I almost wish that it just stayed a instrumental, because he got such a unique style that it kind of takes me out of it. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah, Waters definitely, it's almost not restrained, but kind of, you feel like he's not belting as much as he could be.
Right. It's like when you hear Tom Kenny in Anything But SpongeBob. You hear his voice and you're like, oh, that's Tom Kenny, and it instantly takes you out of it. But not crapping on his vocal performance at all. It's very good, but it was just like, it kind of jarred me for a second from the 9 minutes of silence of instrumental music. Like, oh yeah, this is a Pink Floyd song.
Yeah, kind of, you're like, oh yeah. It's a little jarring, but it's not like he belts right into it. He kind of eases into it until the chorus kind of gets a little more energetic. And then, of course, though the vocals aren't there for super long, they're there for like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes.
If that.
And then, of course, so you had the guitar, you had some rock organ, you had vocals. What else do you introduce? A saxophone, of course.
Oh, and it's such a smooth saxophone. So good.
Ooh, it's super smooth. And I'm not sure if you noticed. So the saxophone starts around the 11-minute point.
Mm-hmm.
Then at like the 12-minute mark, I think it switches from like, I want to say like from baritone to tenor.
Yeah.
Because it like goes up a octave, and it like adds the energy while also just keeping that smoothness throughout.
Yeah, they don't want to jump straight to that tenor because it would take you out of the song. Ooh, sorry, smacking my microphone. Take you out of the song. Because it's just got too much energy transitioning from vocals to saxophone. So you're bringing it on the bass, you start low, you work your way up, and then you go into the tenor range to kind of ride the song out. And, you get another case of a minute saxophone solo followed by a minute saxophone solo. You got to evolve it somehow. So they switch instruments.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting way to, like we said, this track's called Shine on Your Crazy Diamond, parts 1 through 5. The final track is Shine on Your Crazy Diamond, parts 6 through 9. So it's kind of like the rest of the album's kind of sandwiched between them. But I think an interesting way that they kind of lead into the next song is they kind of leave the synth kind of hanging. And this like kind of rumbling undernoise kind of just hangs there as the rest of the music fades out. And this kind of helps transition into the next track. So they always keep the cohesion of the entire album in mind between tracks, which I really appreciate.
And track number 2 is Welcome to the Machine.
Welcome to the Machine.
And that transition, like you were talking about, Cooper, that fade over between songs, I wish was standard for every...
Because usually, they cut to silence. Here, it's silence, quote unquote, but it's kind of like there's this deep rumbling that kind of follows one song to the next. That kind of keeps, like, you're in the same mindset. And the rumbling actually is pretty apt for this song, because it kind of starts with this the deep buzz, and then almost something like almost like a deep fan, like a machine, going through, motifs,
yeah,
ideas.
It's kind of an industrial noise, very rhythmic and deep.
And it kind of, as it's going, this kind of I keep saying deep, but deep synthesizer kind of breaks in as well. That's kind of welling underneath everything, bubbling, like the guitar.
Yeah, and there's a bass note that bounces between ears that's pretty nice. And normally I'm not a fan of the separate ear kind of thing, but I think my issue with that comes from a line is played exclusively in one ear, kind of like the industrial noises at the beginning. It sticks around just enough to start getting annoying, and then it fades, thankfully. But that bass note bouncing between ears gives a really cool feeling. And there's a couple other instruments that do that occasionally as well. But they don't play a whole theme in one ear and play another theme in another, which kind of screws with your head a bit.
Yeah, it's a very... it's used sparingly enough that it doesn't get annoying,
Mhm.
right? Which can always be a danger. Novelty can be very fast if you're not careful with it. And someone, as Carmen is asking in the chat, of which part is the radio edit for "Shine on Your Crazy Diamond"? I'm assuming. Um, I'm pretty sure the radio parts are. At least I was reading that it's usually 1 and 2, and then like 4, which is where the vocals are introduced, and then it looks like 7, which is, of course, we haven't talked about that yet. But there's also like a guitar solo in 7, so I can imagine that's like a solid like 10-minute song.
Yeah.
So it might be even cut out like part 1 and just be like 2, 4, and 7. But obviously, this is not an album made for radio.
It
I
is
think
not.
you can safely
No.
say. And there's actually some kickback from. We'll talk about it more on "Have a Cigar," but their studio was not as pleased with the construction of this album as you can imagine, since it's not super, radio safe.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear the history behind it.
Yeah,
but the thing that surprised me the most was the acoustic coming in, which somehow managed to mesh in with all the synth and industrial noises. I was not expecting that to work at all, but it worked perfectly.
it's a very man and machine kind of song, where you got the naturalistic, very acoustic, folksy synth mixed in with this like rather fat synth, almost like Stardust space age synth, kind of blazing through.
Stardust, you say?
Yes. But it's like the part where it's just the acoustic and the synth. Almost, it's like if America had electro, like the band America. Like this very smooth acoustic with like some very thick synth, which is an interesting combination. I think it pays off very well on this song.
Yeah, it's the acoustic comes in and then it ties in with the vocals, which I'm not sure would be able to survive without that acoustic there, because it, like we were saying, it's so industrial in its sound. I will say that synth that comes in near the end is so electronic. I love it so much.
It is. This album does get rather electronic at times, especially for an album that was released in what? I guess 75's not outside of the range, but
I mean, it's pretty old.
Yeah, so it's not like electronic. It's like has its roots in everything yet.
Yeah, certainly not mainstream.
Yeah, but it's utilized well here, and of course, I think Waters' vocals are great on this song. He's always got a way of like working in with the instruments, kind of channeling. This has like almost a more forlorn aspect to it.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a very pleasant on the ear song, even with the industrial elements to it. They all mesh together so well.
Yeah, it's kind of a soft industrial noise.
Yeah, it's not like clashing Aphex Twin style into your brain.
It's very far away, machines thumping underneath piles of earth kind of thing.
Yeah, it gets the point across.
Yeah.
And then right around the 5-minute mark, there's also like that very zoomy synth that kind of breaks through again as well, right after the chorus. Like I said, like you're traveling through space and time.
Yeah, that kind of begins the ending bit, if I'm thinking about where you're talking about correctly.
Yeah, I think that's where the vocals kind of cut off. And then the ending bit, I think, is probably around like the 6:30 mark, or basically the song kind of cuts out entirely.
Yeah. There's like a sustained synth note that just kind of goes weep up out of existence, and then it sounds like you're driving away from the factory and going to a bar almost.
Like a party or some sort of like gathering.
I wasn't really sure what was. I was like, okay, how's this going to tie in? And then it fades out to nothing and starts blank for the next song.
The way I pictured it, and I didn't look this up, but just my interpretation, is that it's like, someone kind of almost leaving a factory or something like that and driving to being a performer at like a bar or something, right? That's why there's the audience noises, and then everyone kind of quiets down, and then Have a Cigar comes on.
Yours makes more sense than what I was thinking, but I was thinking, you get done with your day at the factory and then you go to the pub.
Yeah, I think either ones are valid, unless they like said, no, it's wrong.
No, it's this.
represents animal abuse. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay.
Didn't get that, but
Jump to the track number 3 then, if you're ready, Coop.
yes, track number 3, the shortest track on this album at only slightly above 5 minutes. Like, come on, guys, give us some meat. But this is track number 3, Have a Cigar. And this is the one I was talking about, where obviously this album was released a couple of years after Dark Side of the Moon, which is Pink Floyd's most critically and commercially successful album. One of the most critically and commercially successful albums of all time. So obviously the studio pressure was on them.
Mm-hmm.
So this song's kind of a critique of the music industry and the kind of hypocrisy of like the record label being like, keep making this great quality music, but also pump it out faster and make it a little more, radio friendly. And obviously, no artist likes being told what to do.
Yeah.
So this song's kind of like their answer to that. I think Waters said something along the lines of it's like a follow-up to the song Money off of Dark Side of the Moon.
Ooh,
Money!
I love Money. That's such a good song.
So it's kind of like Money, but applied specifically to the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the only 2 Pink Floyd songs to have a vocal feature, which is Roy Harper on this one. He was like a folk singer. He still is. He's actually still making music.
Okay.
At like 78.
Yeah, I think I wasn't the biggest fan of his vocal work, but it fit with the instrumental line just fine. It just felt a little, I don't know, there was something that didn't mesh completely there for me, and maybe it was because it was, a guest vocalist on a Pink Floyd song, which is a once in a blue moon kind of thing.
I mean, definitely is a little more rugged than Waters, like usually smooth vocals. But I guess if there's one song you're just going to appear on, Have a Cigar is kind of, this has almost got a little more bluesy vibe to it. It's probably the most directly rock song on the album. And even it is pretty low key.
But the instrumental work in this one specifically, I mean, all the instrumental work through everything so far is fantastic. But this one, I don't know, somehow it just keeps taking it up a notch every song. And I expect it to be the top, but they do one more. And I guess since they weren't singing, they were putting more work into the instrumentals.
I mean, obviously, Roy Harper's the one leading the singing on this one, and it still keeps the kind of synth elements underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
This one I feel is a little more straightforward than the ones that have been going on so far.
And it's got another rocking guitar solo in it, though.
It does. They always, like the 3:30 mark, it kind of pops off, and it does pair well, really, with the synth line it kind of breaks into.
Mm-hmm. And then this one does another weird kind of ending bit, I guess is the best way to call it. It fades as though you're driving away in a car.
It kind of cuts out almost like if someone was changing the channel on like a radio.
Yeah.
Like they're listening to this song on the radio, and then they change it to the next song in the album. Which, honestly, I appreciate throughout the entire album, how they try to have at least like some sort of like thread line or cohesion from one song to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Really makes it the album experience.
Which is ignored quite a lot. And how often track number 4 is featured on the radio is testament that you can make radio edits of non-radio songs. Track number 4 being Wish You Were Here, the title
track, Wish You Were Here. And like I said, it kind of from like the last song, it kind of begins with kind of like someone flipping through like radio channels.
Mm-hmm.
And the acoustic begins like very faintly, just in your right ear. As if like you had the radio turned very far down. It was only playing out like the right speaker. Before like the rest of the audio kind of comes in and fills in the rest of the song.
I gotta say, this is probably one of my favorite songs of all time.
Oh, really?
I love this song so much, which is part of why I was so quick to agree with this recommendation, because it is that good of a song, in my opinion, at least. It starts with that kind of straight acoustic, very, very quiet. It comes up, but still stays quite subdued. And then Waters comes in over the top, and his vocal style just meshes so well with acoustic. Especially, this is somehow even slower than anything else so far. And it just kind of slides right in there. And then after about a minute of acoustic, would you say, Coop?
Probably close to it. I mean, this is a 7-minute song, so
Yeah.
it has time to breathe.
After about a minute, the rest of the band kind of just comes in because there's no really easy way with the style to slide it in there, like build it up part by part.
Unless you're Shine On Your Crazy Diamond.
Yeah, I mean, they only have 5 minutes in the song. They got to get going. They're already a minute in. So the rest of the band just kind of comes in like ripping off a Band-Aid. But it works. It's not like it's suddenly there. It's, drum hit building up and then everything comes in. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like you said, it's not like the cleanest transition.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess is kind of a tough comparison compared to like Shine On Your Crazy Diamond, where it's like obviously they have a lot of time to make that transition smooth.
Right.
But it's still a pretty nice transition to like the more like electric guitar and percussion and a little bit of piano really coming in as well. As the song kind of fills out with all the instruments, and then a kind of synth is also kind of introduced. Though there's actually not that much vocals on this song, as you would expect.
Surprisingly not.
Very vocal light.
For how often it is featured, it's only got about 2 or 3 verses, I think.
Yeah, it's really lets the instruments do most of the talking, which honestly I would have wanted more vocals on this song.
For sure.
I really like Water singing, and I feel like obviously it's a long song. It has the time. I wish they kind of filled out the instrumentation with that.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if more vocals would take away from the impact that the lyrics have. Because this is I've listened to this song for quite a long time, so I know what's being said in this one. And it's very, I want to say mocking capitalist society, but or mocking consumerism rather.
And I'd believe it.
And putting more words in there wouldn't necessarily get the point across any better. I feel like that melodic lick that is in the acoustic and at the beginning of the song and then transitions to the electric guitar.
The sparseness was a feature, not a bug.
Exactly, yeah. And it with the 2 or 3 verses, it certainly feels like a short song compared to everything else, even though it's only the second shortest song on the album. And it's a 5.5 minute song, so it's not like it's short. It does fade out for about a minute, though, I will say.
Yeah, it has a long fade out, which this is like, there's a lot of long fade outs on this album.
Yeah, but a minute fade out on a 5.5 minute song is maybe a bit much.
It is a bit excessive. I mean, I know it leads into the last track on this album, Shine On Your Crazy Diamond, parts 6 through 9.
Mm-hmm.
That it's kind of into the kind of this whistling wind that then becomes like the beginning of the next song. But not every song needed the long fade out.
Yeah. The only complaint I have about the long fade out, I think, is they never let it finish on the radio. They always cut it off about 5 seconds in.
Why? So they don't just have a minute of dead air?
Yeah. Well, it's not dead air; it's fading. But, yeah.
Very long fading.
Jump to track number 5.
Yeah, it's the title track. As I said, Shine On Your Crazy Diamond, parts 6 through 9. And it's another 12.5 minute song. So the Shine Ons are more than half the album taken all together, which is a chunky bit.
It is. And this one has a significant chunk of wind sounds at the beginning, which are nice and stick around for quite a way, for about a minute into the song. Which really helps make the transition less awkward because it comes in, stays at consistent volume while the song starts up and then slowly fades out so you don't notice it's being taken away, which is, I love the transition work that they've done with these super long songs because they have the time to make it sound good. They've done a lot of things that you normally can't do in 3-minute songs.
I mean, it's basically, you can't have a minute transition a 3-minute song, right?
Yeah.
And a 10-song album, it's just, you don't have enough space or time.
Mm-hmm.
When it's a 5-song album, you got nothing but time. And as we said, part 6 is basically the first 5 minutes of the song. And it kind of starts with that wind with the bass coming in underneath before the kind of motif of the synth kind of busts through as well. And a really nice guitar solo also comes in at like the 2:30 mark.
Yeah, it's it's got the guitar solo. It's got that more of that sci-fi synth that I love that just keeps on coming back.
Yeah, that's kind of like the through line throughout the entire album. Each song has it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite a guitar solo too. Like it lasts like a solid like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, and it's much more rock influenced. I felt it was a little bit jarring
It brings
about
the
how
energy faster
stylistically
than
different it is.
the first Shine On You Crazy Diamond. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, it came in a lot harder and stronger, and it was like, oh, okay, and you get used to it quickly. But it was very different than the style of the first 12-minute song.
Which I guess makes it. It's hard to have you shouldn't have another 8 minutes of build up at the end of your album.
Mm-hmm.
Might be a bit gratuitous.
Yeah, it was only 5 minutes to the vocals on this one, so 4 minutes faster than last time.
Yeah, new PB. But the vocals do come in with the guitar kind of mimicking the vocal line before the chorus kicks in with the vocal. And this part's super short. It's only from 4.5 minutes to 6 minutes. So it's pretty much a vocal chorus repeat. And there's no vocals on the rest of the album, or the rest of the half of the song.
Yeah, after the vocals drop out, it kind of gets a funk backing. Did you pick up on that?
These arpeggiated riffs kind of come in. It was a really pristine sounding guitar.
It was really kind of funky and more synth, and that was the first point where I was like, okay, this is definitely a part change.
That's part 8 right there.
It was
that lasts a solid 3 minutes.
I don't know. It threw me for a loop. The bass was very good, but it was way more funk than I was like, oh, I wasn't anticipating how funk heavy this section would be.
Yeah, the rock organ kind of starts to jam on this one.
Yeah.
And it kind of takes, like I said, those 3 minutes, a little more rock organ. Some synth comes in, and that kind of pristine guitar also plays through. But then, a minute of this section is just another fade.
I was really concerned that it was going to be a 4-minute fade out to the end of the song.
Yeah, you're it's a fade, but we're only 8 minutes into this 12-minute song.
We've got another 4.5 minutes at least left. Why are they fading now?
Which it fades into the final part 9, which is minute 9 to the end of the song. And basically, this one's kind of built around this kind of synth line that kind of also plays the chorus line one last time.
Yeah, it kind of transitions back to the style that dominated parts 1 through 5.
Yeah, so it kind of is, I guess, bringing it all together, the closure for the entire song.
And I felt the fade out at the end here. It wasn't too long, Usually I'm quite against fading in music.
This album's been 20% fade.
Well, to be fair, they're transitioning between songs and they're doing things with it. It's not like they didn't know how to end the song, so they're fading. They're singing the chorus again, but they're just fading it out.
Yeah. No, it has merit, but it would be weird if the song just ended. I'd be
Yeah. With the style, they cannot just end the song. They have to. Clearly, the song ends when the fade out finishes. That's the last note. You're not thinking that they're, on a truck driving down the highway, continuing to play, and they're just too far away to hear. But if they didn't do that fade, stylistically, it would not make sense.
So yeah, it works here because the album's kind of built around it, and it's basically just kind of the synth, kind of the ascending synth line and the sparkling sounds kind of flip the album away. Kind of goes off into the sky.
Yeah, and that's the end of the album. That's the end of part 5. And Carmen is asking which part of Shine On You Crazy Diamond is the one that plays on the radio.
I mean, probably the one that's most recognizable is the one with the vocals. So that'd be part 4, I believe. Yeah, where the vocal line is introduced. And then, yeah, probably part 4 and 5, because it also has that nice saxophone going in as well. Though I guess there's so many different ways to cut up this song. I'm not quite sure if there's even just one radio edit. Mm-hmm. I personally have never heard it on the radio.
I have not either. The only song from this album I've heard on the radio is "Wish You Were Here."
Yeah, I mean, the studio did say it wasn't a radio-friendly album, so I guess compared to the rest of Pink Floyd's discography, this definitely holds true.
Well, I mean, even The Wall, they did some heavy cutting to get some of those songs on. Even for "Wish You Were Here," they cut off quite a bit of the beginning
And the fade.
and quite a bit of the end to put it on the radio. And what's the other one that's coming up to my mind is crap. One song from The Wall.
We don't get no.
That one. It's the Mother one.
Oh yeah. I think it's just called Mother, right?
Is it just called Mother? I can't remember off the top of my head. But both of those required some heavy editing to become radio worthy as well.
Yeah. Obviously, Pink Floyd makes the disc jockeys work for it.
Yeah, they do.
And this is not just pop it on, it's done.
Although, not much of that. All that's been done already. They've been around for quite a while, so you kind of just pop on.
Yeah, they've had 45 years.
They pop on the radio edit that the
Jesus
studios
do
had in the
tomorrow.
vault for 35 years, so. But that's the end.
Actually, are some interesting edits. So there's many different cuts of Shine on You, Crazy Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. There's I had the list of them here. The Great Dance Songs Collection cut, which this is not a dance album, so I don't know how I got on there.
How would you manage that?
I have no idea, but it's parts 1, which is hilarious, great dance song. Parts 1, 2, 4, and 7.
Okay.
So I guess the build-up, the chorus, and one of the guitar solos. Then there's one that's just parts 1 through 7. So I guess they get rid of the synth play off. The one that's just parts 1 through 5. So basically just the first part.
I can see them just tossing parts 1 through 5 into a bundle and saying it's done. Since that's just one song as it is.
How did they do one that was 1, 2, 4, and 7? That's such a weird cut for great dance songs. Okay. Yeah. 70s were wacky.
But what would you say is your favorite and least favorite songs on this album, Cooper?
I mean, that's this album is a tough one to say that on.
Especially since there's only 5 songs.
There's 5 songs, and there's not I don't dislike any of them.
Yeah.
Strongly.
You gotta pick one.
My favorite, I'll probably say Welcome to the Machine. Just because it's I love the mix of the acoustic and the synthesizer. I think it's Waters' best vocal performance on the album. And it's such a beautiful, smooth, but also it's got these bubbly, these kind of machiney undertones that work really interestingly. That I really like. I guess least favorite is maybe Have a Cigar, maybe Wish You Were Here. Like I said, I like both the songs as well. It's hard to say I just Shine on You, Crazy Diamond, because it's basically 9 different songs.
Yeah.
Or 3 different songs that are kind of stretched over it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just say definitely Welcome to the Machine was my favorite song.
I respect that. I'm going to have to say Wish You Were Here. That's one of the songs that still gives me chills, when it comes on the radio.
Goose
kind of
pimples.
Thing. Yeah. I don't like that. And for least favorite, I guess I have to say Have a Cigar. It was my least favorite, but it's still leagues above other favorite songs, even from other albums. So I think what did it in for me was just the feature. His vocals didn't mesh as well with the style.
You aren't a Roy Harper fan?
Yeah, it's comparing a bar of gold to a pure cut diamond, Sure, it's still got a lot of value, but the diamond's better.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely a little jarring to have anything other than Waters' vocals on an album. Like I said, he's only 1 or 2 vocal features on any of their 12 albums. So yeah, so
we should jump over to rating the whole album then.
Yes, and just give a quick spiel. So here at the Audio Shop, of course, we love cars. I drive mine all the time.
I'm in it every day, even though we're in quarantine. I just sit in it for at least 5 hours.
I like to pretend I'm going places. It helps me keep sane. But we like to rank it on a scale of basically 1 to 5, with Showroom being the tip top, cream of the crop. This is the ooh, I love it so much stuff. And then the bottom of the barrel, you got the scrapyard, the get it away from me. This is stuff you shouldn't even begin to listen to. It has no qualities that you would find redeeming. And basically, yeah, we rank it. We might give it a high, we might give it a low, kind of some wiggle room in between. But that's our ranking right there. And I guess I'll start first. And I'm feeling like giving this album a high like new. Um, Obviously, I thoroughly enjoyed this album. I think it's definitely everyone should give it a listen through at least once. Um, I kind of keep it away from being a showroom because, like I said, "Have a Cigar" wasn't my favorite song. It was a fine song, but
Hmm.
it's one of 5 tracks, so it's harder to have a great album can have one fine song. But and also, I mean, I'm not sure this is an album that it's definitely situational. You can't just throw on "Shine On You Crazy Diamond."
Yeah.
Uh, so, and I guess maybe that detracts from it a little bit, but it's got so many great moments, and it's such a unique format, such a unique kind of structure of an album that I can't really see anyone not being at least interested in giving it a try, and
Hmm.
it being something that you take something away with, even if you're not into prog rock, if you're not into Pink Floyd. Uh, it's something that's worth giving a full listen through. And it's only 44 minutes long. It's not like a long album. It's got long songs.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I before I show my hand of what I rated it, Carmen told us before about the Barrett incident. Sid Barrett, who was the previous vocalist, or was he just a member?
He was the founding member of Pink
Founding
Floyd.
member, not vocalist. My bad. But he actually showed up during the recording of this album. They're not certain whether or not it was they were recording "Shine On You Crazy Diamond." They didn't actually recognize him when he showed up because he gained a ton of weight.
He had formerly been ousted from the band.
Yeah, he gained a ton of weight and completely shaved his head and eyebrows.
Oh my!
They finally figured out that it was him. Waters became so distressed that he began crying.
Oh.
Someone asked to play the suite again for Barrett, since this album was written for him, in a way.
Wish you were here.
Yeah, won't get into that. And Barrett said that the second playback was not needed because he had just heard it. When they asked what he thought of the song, Barrett said it sounded a bit old. He slipped away during the celebrations for Gilmore's wedding, which took place later that day. Although they could not confirm or could not recall which composition they were working on when Barrett originally showed up. And Wright had a quote here saying, who's Wright?
He's one of the
Richard Wright.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get his first name in there. Rogers was there and he was sitting at the desk, and I came in and I saw this guy sitting behind him. Huge, bald, fat guy. I thought he looks a bit strange. Anyway, so I sat down with Rogers at the desk and we worked for about 10 minutes, and this guy kept on getting up and brushing his teeth and then sitting doing really weird things, but keeping quiet. And I said to Roger, "Who is he?" And Roger said, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, I assume he was a friend of yours." And he said, "No, I don't know who he is." Anyways, it took me a long time, and then suddenly I realized it was Sid after about 45 minutes. He came in here as we were doing vocals for "Shine On You Crazy Diamond," which was basically about Sid. He just, for some incredible reason, picked the very day that we were doing a song about him. And we hadn't seen him, I don't think, for about 2 years. That's what's so incredibly weird about this guy, and a bit disturbing as well. I mean, particularly when you see a guy that you don't know, you couldn't recognize him. And then to pick the day that we started putting vocals on, which is a song about him. Very strange. So he, not getting into everything that happened to him during that 2 years since they hadn't seen him, but to pick the day that they were recording. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. That is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I can imagine that getting under your skin.
Yeah. But for my rating, I think I'm kind of in line with you, Coop. I'm going to have to give it quite the like new as well. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I want to rate it a showroom, but I realize that this is not for everyone. I am quite the fan of the album setting. I like the songs that are best listened to. Or I like albums they're best listened to in album format. I think I can thank Time by ELO for that. Singles albums I don't really like. Granted, I do like I like singles. You know, there's plenty of songs that I would listen to on their own, but it's such a rare experience to have a album that's crafted to be listened to in one sitting these days. No one ever really did it back then anyway, too. So I definitely think it's worth a listen if you like that kind of flowy style. 100% this is showroom, but for the general person, I think it's more of a like new. Something they'll want to listen to once and then not again. So,
or not revisit it for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, I think they set out and achieved whatever they want from an artistic standpoint. I think their ideas shone through very well.
Mm-hmm. It is a very pleasant listen.
Yeah, and I am glad we listened to it.
Well, that's the end of the album. Do you want to jump on over to talking about our
spare tires? You're taking almost as many breaks as this album. Zing! No, yeah. So our spare tires were just some of the odds and ends we've been listening to throughout the week. We are not reviewing them, but just kind of saying, have a little look-see. And I actually listened to 2 new albums that just came out, both of them. One is Fetch the Bolt Cutters by Fiona Apple, and the other is Song for Our Daughter by Laura Marling. For the Fiona Apple album, she's kind of a more avant-garde kind of pop artist. She's been on the scene since like the 90s. And I specifically want to check it out because this is the first time Pitchfork, which is a music review site, first time they've given an album a perfect score in 10 years. Of course, I'll stipulate this with, and this might make you think less of it, Sam. The last album they gave it to was, or 100, which was back in 2010, was Kanye's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, which is a fantastic album. Thank you. Maybe not a perfect album. That's a bit generous.
So
and I listened to this.
Bad taste.
Wrong, but I won't argue that now. But Fetch the Bolt Cutters is definitely a good listen. Not a perfect album for me. It's got a very strong feminist message that I think is handled very great, and it has a lot of emotion come through some eccentric performances that I think help tell the overall story. And then on the flip side of that is Laura Marling's Song for Our Daughter, a lot more folksy, a lot more acoustic, but so smooth. I think I prefer this one, and there's some emotional moments on this album. It makes you want to. I had a cold because it's just a very touching album about like motherhood. I really got in touch with my inner female on this one, Sam. Okay. And hey, don't laugh.
I'm laughing.
So I highly recommend both of them. If you only have time for one, check out the Laura Marling one first, because it brings a little tear to my eye. What about you, Sam?
I've really not been listening to much music this week. Catching up on some podcasts mainly.
Give some podcast recommendations. That's auditory.
I caught up on, there's one I like called the Triforce Podcast, which is basically 2 British dads and a shut-in that talk for an hour. They're just old friends that talk. And they've been
Aren't we all shut-ins nowadays, Sam?
Yeah, well, they've been very consistent with releases these past couple of weeks due to quarantine. And that's they do Twitch streams and stuff like that I watch anyway, so it's just a nice way to listen to them. And then also, of course, Review Bra, who was supposed to be taking a hiatus because he's been talking about the coronavirus since January.
Truly the Nosferatu of our time.
Yeah, he was the one that brought it to my attention and said, there's a 5% chance that this gets bad, and then, of course, it got bad.
I only want to watch real news. Hard cut. Hello, food review.
But his podcast is very good. He doesn't exactly put on a persona for the food reviews, but he gets to talk about whatever he likes on his podcast, and that's what I like. He's a very uplifting kind of person, although he's very zeroed in on the coronavirus, and that was all he was talking about for about he'd been talking about it since January, but the 5 weeks before he decided to do a hiatus, that was all his show was about. So he's like, he just needed to take a break, not talk about it. But then, of course, as soon as he can't go outside anymore or do anything, he's like, all right, well, I'll just start doing it again. So he's released 3 more episodes since he said he was going on hiatus.
I guess if you're not doing anything.
Yeah, he can't go out and do his walks and stuff. So, but then music-wise, the only thing that's been stuck in my head is Seth Everman's Old Town Road, but played on my synth. The end of that...
And you just love your meme songs.
I do. I'm a terrible person. The end of that, he takes a... is it... Who sings Look at This Photograph?
Oh, you mean Nickelback.
Nickelback. He takes a Nickelback song and meshes it with Old Town Road. And it fits so well. And... it's stuck in my head. It's so dumb. It's like a 30-second little bit that he does just to be funny, but it really works. And he's playing the synth, so I think that's part of why it's.
Wow, Sam loves synth. Huh, I never knew that about you.
Yeah, I hear you. I'll set up a command for it right now. But yeah, I need to be listening to this more. But when I'm shut in like this, when I was driving to work, I was listening to a lot of music. But when I'm shut in, I'm more inclined to watch something as opposed to listen. I like to have something a bit more substantial. Especially,
it's nice to do something with music. I usually like to read while I'm listening.
I can't do that though. If I'm reading something, it either has to be silent or instrumental only.
Yeah, I guess I can see that vocals kind of talking. It's like trying to do 2 things at once.
Exactly. But if I'm playing a video game or watching, if I'm watching a Twitch stream, I don't have anything playing. But if I'm playing a video game alone, I need talking as opposed to music. So like I was watching, I ran out of things to do, so I'm like, I'll watch Indiana Jones. So I did that. And I could have listened to an album or something, but I didn't want to, I wanted to have something more substantial. So
which Indiana Jones?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay.
They just put them all on Netflix not too long ago. So
the second best one.
What do you think the first best one is?
Last Crusade, Buck Brother.
And you are correct.
Yeah, there we go.
I am partial to Crystal Skull myself. No, it's so bad.
I think it's crapped on a little more than necessary.
You say that, but you go back and look at it. Almost
it has been a while since
everything-
I've seen it, so maybe I'm just like, yeah, it was probably good.
All the first 3 are practical effects, and then in 4 they don't do any practical effects, and it's all green screen, and it looks really bad. So
yeah. So here on the movie shop, we like to rate movies based on we know so much about an airplane. So this is a first class, and this one gets the baggage claim.
all right.
That's
probably enough. I don't think I could do a music podcast and a movie podcast.
The visual shop. Yeah, there we go.
It would be fun to do commentary, I think, over a movie.
Movie commentary?
Where we create a movie commentary to be listened to along with the movie. I don't know.
Or just by itself.
But I think we should bring the other schmoes in on that one. I don't think we have enough to say about movies in general.
But
get a 6-person podcast cast. 7 if we get Malia into it, but I doubt she'd want to do that.
She doesn't believe in films.
She doesn't. Thinks pictures steal your soul.
They don't exist.
All
right. Well, I think we'll end it there.
Enough of waffling at the end of this. Thank you so much for watching, or I guess listening to the Audio Shop podcast. Do we introduce? I don't think we've introduced ourselves for the past 15 episodes.
Yeah, they know who we are.
Well, if you're just joining us for the first time and you're hopping on Twitch as we're ending up right now, and you like what you hear, or at least you're not too annoyed by the sound of our voices, you can go on over to YouTube. You scroll down a little bit in the browser version of Twitch, and there's a big old picture of Jeff Lynne, the guy with the curly hair and glasses. You click on his face, it'll take you right over to YouTube, where all of our past episodes are archived. I just remembered that I forgot to unprivate the last one, so that is there as well. I just haven't clicked that button yet. And this one will be there as well for you to listen to. And if you're listening on YouTube right now and you like what you hear, you can come on over live. This has probably been our most chat interactive episode we've ever done. Normally we just kind of ignore it, but I think it's good to incorporate a little bit of that kind of stuff. And if they want to hear what we're listening to next week, Coop, where can they go?
Yeah, if you want to find out what we're going to be reviewing next Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, you can head over to the Audio Shop, Audio Shop Twitter at Audio Shop 14, and we'll give you the lowdown. So you can give it a listen beforehand, so you'll know what we're talking about instead of describing what synth sounds like for the 100th time. So give us a follow there.
But thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you again next week.
Goodbye, shoppies.
See ya, shoppies. See ya.
Ooh.